All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk, Uygur, and Kasparian with you guys. Tumultuous day. So, as usual, we've been attacked under the auspices of a white flag. So we're gonna get to that story very soon. Establishment figures criticizing us while pretending that they're not criticizing and that no one should ever criticize. But this is maybe one of the most brazen examples of it ever. And then they also at the same time go after a person on Bernie Sanders' team on the same exact day. So please spare me your nonsense about how you don't attack and you use the mainstream media to attack progressives every single day and then go, they punch you in the face politically and then go around and go, no, 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 it's like Rowdy Roddy Piper. Anyway, we're gonna do that later. And Bernie Sanders reveals his team, his campaign team, and it's fantastic, filled to the rim with progressives and women and people of color, etc. So we're gonna get to that as well. But first, the racist Republicans.
Yes. We're on the heels of a ridiculous debate involving Representative Ilhan Omar and accusations that she is anti-Semitic simply because she had the audacity to criticize the behavior of the Israeli government specifically. Now, following that, Steve King, Representative Steve King, who has said all sorts of racist things throughout his career, but particularly after Trump's election, is doing a town hall and he gets asked about, his white supremacy. And he still has a hard time condemning white supremacy. Case in point, the video you're about to watch.
Do you think a white society is superior to a non-white?
I don't have an answer for that. That's so hypothetical. America is not a white society. It's never been a completely white society. We came here and joined the Native Americans that were here many times, the numbers greater than ours. I've long said that a baby can be lifted out of a cradle anywhere in the world and brought into any home in America, whatever the color of the folks in that household, and they can be raised to be as American as any other.
Okay, so that's the easiest question in the world. Do you think a white society is superior to a non-white society? The easy answer is no, I don't think it's superior. I believe that all humans are equal, and whether I can go into detail. You don't need to go into detail because it's so simple. No, I don't think it's the whites are superior, right? But you can go into details about geopolitical situations and why different countries and different areas and geographies might develop at different rates at different times, et cetera, et cetera. But you don't have to just say no.
I don't think that.
Okay,
and it's a layup. Right? It's the easiest thing to do, especially given the criticism that you've just received, the fact that you've been kicked off of all of these committees, right? It's so easy to do it. I don't understand why he has such a hard time. And then, like the whitewashing of American history in his answer. Like, yeah, we were just, we came in, we were living alongside the Native Americans, everything was so great. No, that's not how it worked. We all know that.
Yeah, and he said, in case you didn't hear it clearly in the video, you can go back and rewind it. I don't have an answer for that. That's so hypothetical. So you think it is possible that a white society would be superior? I mean, come on, we're still having a conversation. And look, are the Democrats right now working on a resolution in the House to condemn Steve King? No, the Democrats. The reason Anna brought up Ilhan Omar in the beginning is Democrats love to punch themselves in the face, right? They twisted her words. She said, I don't want to have a double allegiance to any country, right? And they said, oh, are you saying Jews have a double allegiance? No, she didn't say that. She said, I don't want to have a double allegiance to any country, including Saudi Arabia, et cetera, right? But Steve King says something incredibly clear. Well, it's it's a hypothetical. I don't know why society. But look, we're going to give you other stuff. He constantly talks about how we can't rebuild our civilization with other people's babies. Mm-hmm. Well, what's complicated about that? This guy is as clear a white supremacist as you could possibly find, but yet there's no House resolution condemning him. But what are we waiting for? I mean, even Liz Cheney, the number 3 Republican in the House, what if Cheney has to tell you you've been monstrous? You might be over the top monstrous. Even she says, I think he should resign. Even Mitch McConnell says he should resign. House Democrats, where are you? I know you love to punch yourself in the face. How about you actually attack real racists? Racists. And if you're a right winger and you want to get triggered by it, have at it, Hoss. Okay, if you're going, well, I don't know, maybe white society is better. That means you're a white supremacist. It's an absurd notion that any one race would be superior to all other races. It's preposterous. And if you don't realize it's preposterous, yes, you are a racist and a bigot.
Now, the woman who asked the question is from a small town in Iowa, population 5,000 people. And I just want to give her some love. Her name's Mary Lavelle. And after seeing what happened with the mass shootings in mosques in New Zealand, she was worried about Representative King's rhetoric and how it could potentially fuel, violent acts here in the United States. And so she brought this up and she was dissatisfied by his answer for obvious reasons. But I also want to go to another portion of this event where he was asked about this notorious photo. He took a picture in his office and he had the Confederate flag. And it was posted all over the internet. And so someone asked him about that as well. And here's what he had to say.
Reporters not invited to ask questions, but we did.
Congressman, before you say your goodbyes, I just want to give you a chance to explain the posting on Facebook, which talked about red states having 8 trillion bullets in case of another civil war. Which
I think it's interesting that nobody here asked that question.
Yeah, can you explain why you posted
anybody here
it,
that's interested in that question, it was this, that I found out about it being posted yesterday morning at the same time, and I thought that it had been taken down about 8:30. It wasn't until a few hours later. It's the only people that care about that are national news media. Nobody has raised the issue around here.
Well, you posted,
and
sir.
so,
Why
no,
did
we're
you
done.
post it?
I've answered your question, and we weren't going to take any questions from press, but I answered your question.
We care about it.
Okay, then I've answered the question.
Did you look at that page?
I found out that was posted yesterday morning, and I don't manage that. I'll say it again. I don't manage that Facebook page, and I could control it, but I don't manage it. So I wasn't aware that was posted until yesterday morning, and I was also under the understanding that it had been taken down right away. It wasn't. I wish it had never gone up.
All right, so let me apologize and clarify something. So he's posted so much or so many Confederate photos and content on his page that I wasn't sure if this was referring to the Confederate flag photo or if this was referring to the other Confederate thing that he posted recently. So it was about the other thing, and let me give you the details on that. He faced scrutiny after a post on his Facebook page speculated who would win a second civil war between red states and blue states. And it also had the caption that read as follows: folks keep talking about another civil war. One side has about 8 trillion bullets while the other side doesn't know.
Doesn't know what bathroom it wants to go to.
Doesn't, yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right, so talk of a civil war, that's really great. Do I believe him that other people might be posting, like his staffers might be posting on his Facebook page? Yeah, but he's the kind of guy who would hire staffers that would post about a civil war where the red states murder everyone in the blue states. Is there any chance that a progressive would have hired a staffer like that? Probably not. And by the way, do I take him at his word? No, I do not. Is it possible he posted it? Sure, it's possible. But that talk is very dangerous as we showed you a clip on the Young Turks, Steve Bannon going around doing a tour in the country. Now, one of the women said, I never thought I'd say this, but I want a dictator, and it's Trump. And Steve Bannon applauded. Everybody on stage sat there, all conservatives. No one objected to that kind of language. Donald Trump is talking about, I have very tough guys on my side, and if things get bad, they'll act very tough. So there's all this nonstop threats of violence, extreme violence, civil war, and they don't mean politically, they mean literally. On the Republican side, Steve King encourages it, and so, and yet he's still in Congress, and the march and the band plays on.
That's exactly right, and it's not just what he's done recently or the way that he answered these questions during this event. It's just his history of saying questionable things, racist things over and over again. The statement that he made to the New York Times that initially got him in trouble with the Republican Party and got him kicked off of his committees was this: white nationalist, white supremacist, Western civilization. How did that language become offensive? He said that. And then, there were all sorts of videos where he talks about the Dreamers and how No, don't be fooled by the dreamers. Some of them are actually very dangerous. You remember this video?
For everyone who's a valedictorian, there's another 100 out there that they weigh 130 pounds and they've got calves the size of cantaloupes because they're hauling 75 pounds of marijuana across the desert.
All right, I gotta just address a couple of things that are over the top stupid by Stevie King. So Steve King, they're dreamers. They're already in this country. They came to this country when they were young. That's why they're dreamers. They didn't have to walk across the border carrying marijuana. That doesn't make any sense, you idiot. If they walked across the border today and you made that charge, it would still be preposterous, cantaloupe calves, etc. But at least there'd be some rational nexus in one part of this. They're already here, you, all right. And then I can answer his question, when did white supremacists become offensive? I don't know, when they lynch people, maybe? When the white supremacists put on hoods and burned crosses in people's front lawn and then went and found them and strung them up on trees and murdered them and then burned their bodies alive and then took pieces of the body home for memorabilia. Maybe that's when it became offensive. And if you can't figure out when white supremacy became offensive, if you can't figure out that no race is superior to another race, well, then we have our answer. So I'm only asking one thing, because Democrats are never gonna do anything, right? I mean, Jesus Christ, when do you take action, right? The Republicans, come on. The Republicans, the main reason the Republicans are mad at Steve King is because he's saying it out loud. They're like, hey, we're supposed to dog whistle. You're getting carried away with the Trump thing. Remember, the Southern strategy is we appeal to racists by using coded language. We don't just come out and say we're for white supremacy. Steve, you're giving up the game. You're letting everybody know what's going on. So they're not gonna do anything real. So, I mean, they're like, wow, we took him off of committees. This guy's in the United States Congress. So all I'm asking is, when someone asks if Steve King is a racist or says he clearly is, because it's all over the record based on his own comments, can you just not cry about it for a second? I know the right wing loves to cry. Like, hey, white supremacists lynching people, not a problem. Steve King being called a racist for saying that he doesn't see anything wrong with white supremacy, that's a problem. How could you call him a racist? How could you call him a racist? Or just go cry in your own corner. That's all I'm asking.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we are gonna do a breakdown of Beto O'Rourke's first 24-hour of fundraising versus Bernie Sanders. That was a huge story throughout the week, but we have some more details that I think are super relevant to that story. How many donors, what was the average donation? We'll give you those details and more when we come back.
And one of the biggest hatchet men in Democratic politics attacked us today. So, and then he asked us not to attack back.
Oh, we're gonna play.
Yeah, we will not honor that request. We'll be back. We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Let me read a couple of comments for you. Gabby Marita writes in the comment section, you know who wishes for a civil war? Traitors. That's a pretty good point. On Twitter, Freak Management 1 says, the only people I see posting eagerly about another civil war are conservatives. I know, it's shocking. I should have warned everyone to sit down before reading this tweet. They're openly looking forward to another civil war. So why would you do that? One, because you love violence, but two, because you know you're on the losing side. The winning side isn't looking to do a civil war, a literal one, because we're the country. We are America. The people looking to do a civil war are the people that are not in favor of America. Okay, so Viscous Cree says Steve King basically described white families that having given back immigrant kids who were separated from their families at the border. Some dude writes in, literally, that's his handle on in the member section. Raging against Steve King is about as useful as raging against a snake for being a snake. His nature will not change. But look, there's a reason why we do it. Because otherwise, the press nonstop does false equivalency. And then the Democrats go along with it. That's why we need to fight back. Because In the mainstream media, they're not going to be passionate. They're going to be dispassionate and then brag about it and be like, oh, we were totally neutral to Steve King's racism. And yes, we equated it to something that wasn't at all racist. Well, we're dispassionate. Okay, well, that's not what we do here. All right, there's so much more. I'll just give you one last fun one to end here. Upermegs0526 on Twitter says, my kids love doing the air guitar to your intro music. We're proud members and part of the TYT army. Thank you guys, we do appreciate it. And thank your kids for me. Okay, now on to David Brock.
Yes. David Brock was a huge supporter of Hillary Clinton back in 2016. And he has been salty about the fact that here at the Young Turks, during the primaries, we did what people in the media should do. Do analysis of the candidates who are running and decide who's progressive in their policy ideas, who isn't so progressive, which policies we like, which policies we don't like. We're upfront, we're honest about our political perspective. David Brock and people like David Brock have been bitter about that and continue to be so. So today, David Brock puts out an op-ed titled, Democrats, Let's Not Eat Our Own. Okay, sounds good, sounds very civil, sounds like he wants us to all get along and have a conversation. And so he goes on this long diatribe about how it's unacceptable to attack Democratic candidates and that it's okay to foster an environment of debate, but it's not okay to attack fellow Democratic candidates in a way that can be then utilized by Donald Trump in the general election. And then he says the following. The Young Turks, a news organization that prominently supports Sanders' candidacy, disseminated a false narrative about shadowy Democratic elites conspiring against the senator in their coverage of his recent town hall. So let's stop for a second before I read the rest of that, okay? Did we ever say anything about CNN conspiring with these operatives?
Nope.
No, we did a lengthy video, which David Brock should probably check out before he writes this ridiculous commentary about us. And what we said was, these comments are fine, these questions are fine. In fact, a lot of these individuals ask great questions, but CNN purposefully misidentified these individuals who asked the questions as American University student or mother of two. Come to find out, we then later find out that these people are either working in their state Democratic parties. One of them was an intern for a lobbying group in Washington, D.C. And so my point is, and this is very simple, it's journalistic ethics 101. It is your responsibility as a journalistic news organization to be as transparent as possible about the individuals who are taking part in any type of political event, any type of news story. Misidentifying them and hiding the fact that they're political operatives is problematic, period.
So now, this is greatly ironic because he's accusing us of doing something that isn't true, when in fact he himself already in that sentence that Anna read, and there's more to come, has said two things that aren't true. That we prominently support Bernie Sanders' candidacy. No, we prominently support progressives, and we don't hide that. Our slogan is home of progressives. But right now, Elizabeth Warren is a great progressive, and we point out her wonderful policies. By the way, when other candidates have great progressive policies, we support it and are enthusiastic in our support. For example, Cory Booker did wonderful work on criminal justice reform, and we talked about it and gave him tremendous credit for it. When people sign up for Medicare for All or Green New Deal, we love that, if they actually mean Medicare for All and Green New Deal. And it is, yes, our job to figure out if they actually mean it. If they say Medicare for All, but then they turn around and say, well, I didn't mean that, I meant Medicare buy-in. Well, those are two different policy proposals. Our job is to tell you that. For some reason, the mainstream media goes, oh no, it's all the same thing. But no, wait, it's not the same thing. Who's spreading false narratives? Right? Those are two different policy positions, and our job is to point that out. So no one, this network has never taken a position on it. Our individual hosts take positions eventually on different candidates, and we don't hide the ball on that. But right now, none of our hosts have even taken a position on any of the candidates. Some of our hosts outwardly like other candidates, okay? And by the way, we all like all the candidates for different reasons. Inslee does great work on the environment. But we're not going to then say someone who says, hey, I'm against Medicare for all. Oh, I bow down to him and I agree with him. I don't. I'm for Medicare for all. And I'm clearly telling you that. But for him to say that the network supports Bernie Sanders alone in his candidacy is just empirically not true. If you're not gonna watch the show, then don't put out false statements. And then to say that we talked about shadowy Democratic elites who picked the people who were asking the questions, we never said that.
No such thing.
So that's
no
two lies. Two lies in the first sentence.
And by the way, so I have a real problem with Democrats coming after us for saying very accurate things about CNN. First off, CNN announces that it's gonna hire a Republican operative, right, Sarah Uygur, to have editorial control over the election coverage, the upcoming 2020 election coverage. You don't think that's problematic? Of course that's problematic. So we bring that up, we fight and make sure that our audience knows about this, but more importantly, that there's additional pressure for CNN to change course. And guess what? CNN changed course. Now, we can't take full credit for that, obviously. I don't know if we've had any influence. But the most important thing is that a political operative does not have editorial control at CNN, right? So now she's gonna be a contributor, that's fine. But then when we call out CNN for misidentifying individuals asking questions at the town hall, that was a legitimate criticism. Any journalistic expert in ethics will tell you that. And guess what? CNN put out a statement confessing that they did the wrong thing. So who's wrong here? Is it us or is it you, David Brock, who just completely lied about what we had said in the first place? So I wanna give you the statement from CNN. A CNN spokesperson spoke to the New York Post and said the following: though we said at the beginning of the town hall that the audience was made up of Democrats and independents, we should have more fully identified any political affiliations. Okay, so first of all, of course we're gonna assume that people in the audience are Democrats, but no one's gonna assume that one is an intern for a DC lobbyist, or another individual owns his own political PR firm, or that other people asking questions are actual leaders within the Democratic Party in their own state. Now again, their questions were fine. All I'm saying, and all we were saying, is that they should be identified for full transparency, period.
Yes, we never said they were malicious, and in fact, we asked for equally tough questions for all the candidates and for clear identification. So now, given that you just heard the quote from CNN acknowledging that they were wrong about that and we were right, and by the way, that's 2 times we helped to correct CNN when they appeared to be doing things that did not help progressives. So if for the entire Democratic Party, you're welcome, okay? But we don't get a welcome, we get these attacks. Let's read the rest of David Brock's quote.
They did opposition research on Sanders's questioners, impugning their motives by pointing to an internship one of them had done, and the composition of the board of directors of a nonprofit that another one of the questioners once worked for. This type of conspiracy mongering hurt us in 2016 and will again in 2020. You wanna know, David Brock, what hurt us in 2016? The DNC doing anything and everything they could to manipulate the outcome of the Democratic primaries. Because let me tell you something, when you have Bernie Sanders supporters find out about what the DNC is doing, and then you demand that all of those Bernie Sanders supporters tuck tail and vote for Hillary Clinton, you think that they're gonna do that? Of course they're not gonna do that. They were angry. They were angry by the actions of the Democratic establishment. They were angry about the manipulation. And that's the lesson that you failed to learn. That's the lesson that establishment Democrats failed to learn. And I find it hilarious when they point to us and blame us simply for doing our jobs in analyzing who these candidates were, what they really stood for, what their upsides and downsides were. And I'm so tired of people telling me specifically, right, who I need to support. Because his op-ed was really a veiled attempt to demand that we support whoever the establishment decides needs to be the candidate. No, we're not playing ball, okay? And if you wanna fight, you wanna play these games, I'm ready, we're ready. I'm not gonna sit here and allow this clown to put out this fake narrative about us and what we're doing.
Okay, so let's continue. He says they did opposition research for Sanders. and then later talks about conspiracy mongering. Do you have any evidence that we were doing opposition research for a candidate? No, you don't, because we weren't. When you actually investigate the facts of a situation, that is called journalism. Now, why does he assume that it's Oppo research? Because that's what he's done his whole life. He was a Republican operative who did Oppo research against the Clintons. Then he turned and became a Clinton operative who did Oppo research against progressives. And what does he do when he does opposition research? He gives it to journalists, and the journalists print it without ever disclosing that it was opposition research.
That's right.
So since he has been guilty of this his whole career, he assumes we do it. No one from the Sanders team told us to do that. We looked at it and thought, hey, that's weird. It appears that these people are not necessarily what CNN labeled them to be. By the way, they didn't. The person who's an intern didn't raise their hand and misrepresent themselves. CNN mislabeled them, right? So that's called journalism. What you do in Oppo research and then planting it with your buddies in the mainstream media is called Oppo research. And then to turn around to say our facts that were proven 100% right is conspiracies, while he launches conspiracy after conspiracy, is hilarious. In fact, we're gonna get to one of those that he did in 2016. But understand the whole point of the article. Remember, it's titled Democrats, Let's Not Eat Our Own. And then he viciously attacks us with a completely false narrative in the article, and then goes, what? You see how the Young Turks and every other Bernie, anyone who might consider supporting Bernie Sanders, any other progressive, should never ever criticize our candidates. And so
that's right.
The way that they criticize progressives is they do Oppo research, they plant it in the media, and then the media runs it, and so then they don't have their fingerprints on it, and they go, well, I didn't attack anyone. Now you see David Brock screwed up here because he put his name on it, okay? So this is what he normally has his friends do. And they write the op-ed and say, oh yeah, anyone who's progressive like Young Turks, homo progressives is bad. And then they smear you with lies, etc., right? Now Brock put his fingerprints on it, but normally he doesn't. Although there is, again, we're gonna get to the case where he famously did so in 2016. And then if we're open and honest and we come out on air, I mean, he sounds like a conspiracy theorist like Mr. Reagan who did that video on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez the other day. Oh, the Young Turks secretly do this. Then how come we said it on air? Okay, it's not much of a secret if you broadcast it. We are honest, you are dishonest, which leads us back to 2016 since you opened up these can of worms.
So in 2016, it was no surprise to anyone, or it's no surprise to anyone today, that there were paid bots all over social media, particularly on Twitter, and it was almost night and day. All of a sudden, if you were a Bernie Sanders supporter, you would see this giant group of Twitter users attacking you and calling you all sorts of names, you're a Bernie bro, defaming you. And so then a story comes out by the Daily Beast. It was written by Ben Collins. The title is Hillary PAC spends $1 million to correct commenters on Reddit and Facebook.
Okay, wait. So those aren't real people. Those are people who are paid. They spent $1 million. You know what they're called? There's another word for them. They're called trolls. They're paid operatives, political operatives from David Brock's group who went to attack progressives online. So I believe that would be attacking other candidates. And you did it with fervor and you did it with donor money. And now you're gonna turn around and say, oh golly gee, I would never attack anyone. And I can't believe that anybody on the progressive side would ever dare criticize the policies of my chosen candidates who you must bow your head to. No, we do not agree.
So I'm gonna read from this piece because it's important to either refresh your memory if you already knew about it, or let people know about the kind of games losers play as they're losing, because they can't win based on ideas or policies. They have to win based on manipulation, which is what the DNC attempted to do in the last election. And is it okay for me to bring that up, David Brock? Am I losing my integrity by letting the audience know the facts of what happened in 2016? Let me give you the details. Citing lessons learned from online engagement with Bernie bros, a pro-Hillary Clinton super PAC is pledging to spend $1 million to pushback against users on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Instagram. Correct the Record's Barrier Breakers project boasts in a press release that it has already addressed more than 5,000 people that have personally attacked Hillary Clinton on Twitter. The PAC was created in May of 2015 when it was spun off from the American Bridge Super PAC, which was run by longtime Hillary and Bill Clinton supporter David Brock. So this is the guy attacking us. And you can understand why he's bitter. He doesn't want people like us criticizing Hillary Clinton. He doesn't want people like us, doing a fair analysis of the candidates from a progressive perspective. And by the way, in his recent op-ed, he argues that all of the candidates running right now in the Democratic Party are progressives.
Hilarious. All right, so look, you guys judge on your own who you think is the honest actors. So during the 2016 race, as you saw for yourself, if you were watching back then, Anna and I had a long disagreement about whose education policy was better. I was on Hillary Clinton's side, she was on Bernie Sanders' side in terms of their plan for a college tuition for kids, okay? We criticized Bernie Sanders for his policy on guns, and we said Hillary Clinton was better on that. Now, on the other issues, Bernie Sanders was more progressive than her, and in fact, almost everyone in the media would not only agree to that, but would criticize him for that. Oh, he's too liberal, too progressive, right? Right now, we're saying he should release his tax returns. Now, do you see them being equally critical of their own candidates? No, not only will they never, ever criticize their own candidates in an honest way, but they will demand that no one else ever criticize them. So, and when you say they're all progressive, what do you mean? More than half of them have said, no, we don't think we should scrap private insurance and do Medicare for all. And and to great applause from Anderson Cooper, CNN, etc. right? Okay, so that is, by definition, less progressive. And by the way, that's okay. You might be for a less progressive position. It doesn't mean that the more progressive position is right every time or right for you as a voter, right?
Klobuchar came out and positioned herself. She very transparently positioned herself as the moderate candidate. And she's progressive?
She's not even claiming to be more progressive.
I mean, why are you insulting our intelligence, right? Not just our intelligence, but the intelligence of American voters. You think we're stupid?
And then you go out and then you do barrier breakers where you pay people to attack actual supporters of Bernie Sanders. The Bernie Sanders supporters were not paid. They were real people who actually cared. You bought people because your position was so unpopular, you couldn't find real supporters to do it. So you had to pay people $1 million to be trolls online. And now you write an article saying, Democrats, let's not eat our own, after you paid millions of dollars to eat our own and to viciously attack all progressives. And then in the middle of that article, you attack progressives. So, and then you ask us to never criticize your candidates. No deal, not even close. Well, we will do our job and we will correctly identify the policy positions of the candidates.
The fact of the matter is, people like David Brock are really angry with people like us because we have an interest in letting our audience know the truth. And people like David Brock do not enjoy when we call out other news organizations for lying to the American public or for doing things that lack journalistic integrity. Now, CNN has confessed that it lacked the integrity when it refused to clearly identify the individuals asking the questions in that town hall. They did the right thing in admitting that, and they did the right thing in removing Sarah Eisger from an editorial role. But David Brock doesn't like all that stuff. David Brock would much rather support the dissemination of misinformation as long as it helps whichever candidate he decides and the establishment decides they're going to jam down our throats. No, we're not playing that game. We're not playing ball. The primaries happen for a reason, and it's to decide who the best candidate is to represent the Democratic Party. It is not some sort of dog and pony show, and it's not some make-believe thing that happens for pageantry. It's something that happens for a purpose, and I'm not gonna allow people like David Brock to make decisions for the American people. It's not gonna work that way.
Last two things. Look, we're also fair to CNN. After they corrected themselves on those two decisions, we gave them credit because they were responsive to the people who, not just us, way more importantly is our audience, their audience, the viewers, who they have an obligation to be frank with. And they were afterwards, so that's a good, positive thing. And I'd like to ask David Brock one thing. So are you going to then not plant any articles in the press against Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or any other progressive? Do you promise not to do that? And if we catch you doing that, will you retire from politics? And just, I don't know, go be a dentist, go get an education, do something else with your life. No, you won't promise that at all. And even if you do, you will not keep that promise because your aim is to plant stories against progressives in the mainstream media with your Oppo research and attack progressives in the shadows while pretending to be for unity out in the open. And so we see that game. You think you're clever, you're not that clever.
I want to take a break.
Okay, when we come back, Bernie Sanders reveals his team. Interesting upsides and downsides to that conversation. And Beto O'Rourke actually beat Bernie Sanders in fundraising in the first 24 hours. We'll give you the nuances of that, both the upsides and the downsides of that. And I guess David Brock will cry because we gave you the truth about upsides and downsides. Oh my God, don't do that. And just last thing, guys, think about it. He's basically saying, don't do your jobs in reporting the news. You should only fluff Democratic candidates. No. What a preposterous request. All right, Young Turks.